The massive interrogation chamber aboard the Galactic Council's flagship stretched out like a metallic cathedral. Blue energy pulsed through the walls in rhythmic patterns, casting eerie shadows across the room. At the center, surrounded by floating, holographic displays and recording equipment, sat the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. Kethver had once been the pride of the Zorthok military. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, even while seated, his reptilian frame was built for war. Thick scales that had once gleamed like polished armor now bore the scars of impossible battles. Deep burn marks crossed his chest like lightning bolts frozen in time. His left arm, once capable of crushing steel, now hung motionless at his side. The nerves, severed by some terrible weapon, the 3 council members sitting across from him, represented the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Council leader Vextel, an ancient cephalopod from the water worlds of Aquanus, had lived through 1,000 years of galactic politics. Her translucent tentacles moved with nervous energy, each one equipped with neural sensors that could detect the slightest deception. To her right sat council member Vexim, a crystalline being whose body reflected light in patterns that revealed his emotional state. The third member, Zalmoth, belonged to a race of energy beings who rarely took physical form. Appearing now as a shimmering humanoid outline filled with swirling stars, the room's atmosphere was heavy with tension. These were beings who had seen the rise and fall of empires, who had witnessed the birth of new species and the extinction of others. Yet nothing had prepared them for what they were about to hear. The recording systems are active, announced Vexthal, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Begin your report, Survivor Kethver. Kethver's yellow eyes, each the size of a human fist, swept across the room like searchlights. A paused on the holographic recorder, its red light blinking steadily. For a moment, the mighty warrior seemed like a frightened child. Its massive claws, each one sharp enough to tear through starship hull plating, trembled as they gripped the reinforced table. You want to know about the humans? Once commanding enough to rally entire fleets, now cracked like broken glass? About what happened to our fleet of 300 vessels? About how the greatest armada in galactic history was reduced to 7 burning wrecks fleeing through space? The council members had heard rumors, of course, whispers in the dark corners, of space stations, tales told by traumatized survivors in the medical bays of rescue ships. But the Zorthok Empire had always been secretive about their defeats. Such things even existed. Kethvar's breathing grew labored, each breath sounding like air escaping from a damaged life support system. I was fleet commander of the 47th Assault Division. 150 ships under my direct command. We were the hammer of the Empire, the fist that crushed rebellion across 17 star systems. He paused, his gaze becoming distant, as if seeing something far beyond the walls of the chamber. 6 months ago, our deep space sensors detected unusual energy signatures from the Sol system, a minor star cluster on the outer rim of the galaxy. Nothing important, or so we thought. The Isk crystalline body shifted, light patterns dancing. Across his surface, the Sol system was classified as primitive. Pre-warp civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel? That's what our intelligence said. Kethver nodded, his voice gaining strength as he fell into the familiar rhythm of a military briefing. The High Command laughed when we intercepted their crude radio signals. Mathematical sequences, prime numbers, simple binary code. They called themselves humans. Soft pink creatures who had only recently discovered how to split the atom. Council leader Vextal's tentacles writhed with impatience. She had ruled star systems when these humans were still living in caves. Get to the point, Survivor. What made the Empire dispatch a full battle fleet to such an insignificant target? Kethver's claws scraped against the metal table, leaving deep gouges in the reinforced surface. Because they did something impossible. In the span of 50 standard years, they went from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel. 50 years. It takes most species 5,000 years to make that leap. The room fell silent, except for the humming of the ship's systems. Even among the galactic community, such rapid technological advancement was unheard of. The Emperor himself ordered the expedition, Kethver continued, not to conquer but to study. We were to capture specimens, analyze their technology, understand how they had achieved the impossible. It was supposed to be a simple research mission. Zalmuth's energy form pulsed brighter, but something went wrong. Kethver's laugh was bitter and hollow. Wrong? Everything went wrong from the moment we entered their system. We expected to find cowering primitives begging for mercy. Maybe a few crude orbital defense platforms, some basic kinetic weapons. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. And what did you find instead? Asked Vexim, leaning forward despite himself. Kethver's entire massive frame shuddered, as if the memory itself caused him physical pain. His yellow eyes met each council member's gaze in turn, and in those depths they saw something that chilled them to their cores, absolute, primal terror. Monsters wearing the faces of prey. The silence in the interrogation chamber stretched like a taut wire before Kethver continued his testimony. His massive claws left fresh scratches on the reinforced table as memories flooded back. Our advance. Scouts had been monitoring the Sol system for weeks before the main fleet arrived, he began, his reptilian features contorting with the effort of recollection. Commander Vexel led a stealth reconnaissance mission with 12 of our fastest ships. They reported back with what seemed like perfect intelligence. Kethver's yellow eyes focused on a point beyond the chamber walls, as if he could still see the tactical displays from that fateful day. Small colonies scattered across their outer system like pearls on a broken string, mining stations around asteroid belts, a few orbital platforms near their gas giants. Everything looked exactly as we expected from a primitive civilization trying to expand beyond their home world. Councilmember Vexim's crystalline body flickered with curiosity patterns. Your scouts detected no unusual defensive capabilities. Nothing. Kethver shook his massive head. The human vessels appeared to be simple cargo haulers and civilian transports. Basic fusion drives, primitive communication arrays, minimal shielding. Our tactical computers calculated a 98% probability of immediate surrender upon first contact. He paused, his breathing becoming more labored as the memory grew more intense. When our main battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of their system, we expected chaos. Panic transmissions, desperate evacuation attempts, maybe some foolish gesture of defiance before inevitable surrender. Vextel's tentacles writhed with anticipation. That's not what happened. The humans did nothing. Kethver's voice carried a note of bewilderment that hadn't faded even after months of reflection. For exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds, there was complete silence from every human vessel in the system. Our sensors showed they were clearly aware of our presence. Their communication networks were active, but they said nothing. The massive Zorthok warrior shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the metal groaning under his weight. Fleet commander. Zergtak grew impatient. He ordered a standard intimidation display. 20 of our largest dreadnoughts moved into attack formation and powered up their main weapons. The energy discharge alone should have been enough to terrify any primitive species into immediate submission. Kethver's claws scraped against the table again, the sound echoing through the chamber like nails on metal. That's when the first transmission came through. Crystal clear, no static, perfect translation matrix, human voice, calm as deep space. Speaking directly to our flagship, he mimicked the voice, his reptilian vocal cords struggling to reproduce human speech patterns. Welcome to human space. This is Captain Minho of the colony vessel New Sol. We've been expecting you. Council leader Vextel's tentacles stopped their constant movement, freezing in place like cables suddenly cut. Expecting you?
How could
They have known? That's exactly what Commander Zergtak demanded to know, Kethver continued. He opened a channel and roared his standard conquest speech. The usual threats about the might of the Zorthok Empire, demands for immediate surrender. Warnings about the futility of resistance. The warrior's voice grew quieter, forcing the council members to lean forward to hear him. Captain Minho listened to the entire speech without interruption. When Commander Zergtak finished, there was a pause. Then the human spoke again, and his voice carried something I had never heard in the voice of prey species. What was it? Zalmoth's energy form pulsed with curious light. Amusement, Kethver whispered. Pure, genuine amusement. Like a parent listening to a child's tantrum, said, "We know you're here to demonstrate your superiority through violence. We understand the concept perfectly. Most species in the galaxy seem to speak this language fluently." Kethver's entire frame shuddered as he continued. But then Captain Minho's tone shifted slightly, still calm, still controlled, but with an edge that made my scales crawl. "However, we should inform you that we've had considerable time to prepare for this conversation. We've been monitoring galactic communications for quite some time now. The implications hit the Council members like a physical blow. If the humans had been intercepting galactic transmissions, they would have known about Zorthok military doctrine, fleet compositions, tactical preferences." Then Captain Minho did something that chilled us to our cores. Kethver's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He laughed. Not a nervous giggle or a sound of madness, a genuine hearty laugh, like someone who had just heard the perfect joke. The sound echoed through our command bridge, and I watched seasoned warriors take involuntary steps backward. The massive reptilian continued, his memory becoming more vivid. Commander Zergtak was furious. He demanded immediate surrender or total annihilation. Standard protocol when dealing with defiant primitives. The humans' response was to do something we had never encountered in over 1,000 years of conquest. The Exim's crystalline surface showed patterns of intense concentration. What did he do? Captain Minho began broadcasting the exact coordinates. Of every human settlement in the system, Kethver's voice carried amazement even now. Military installations, civilian colonies, mining operations, research stations, everything. He gave us a complete tactical overview of their entire defensive network. The council members exchanged glances of disbelief. No species willingly revealed their positions to an invading force. But that wasn't the strangest part, Kethver continued. As he transmitted each set of coordinates, Captain Minho provided detailed information about each facility. Population numbers, defensive capabilities, strategic importance. It was like he was giving us a guided tour of targets. Vextel's tentacles began moving again, slowly, hypnotically. Why would they reveal such information? Voice grew haunted. Captain Minho concluded his transmission with words that should have been a surrender, but sounded like a challenge. "Come and take them," he said. "We've prepared appropriate welcomes for each of your battle groups. But know this about humans, Commander Zergtak. We don't surrender. We don't retreat. We definitely don't forget." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Each council member processed the implications of what they were hearing. Commander Zergtak saw it as supreme arrogance from a doomed species, Kethver continued. He immediately ordered the fleet to divide into attack groups. Standard doctrine, overwhelming force applied simultaneously to multiple targets to break enemy morale quickly and efficiently. His yellow eyes met each council member's gaze. 300 of the galaxy's most advanced warships, each group targeting a different human settlement. We expected to crush their resistance within hours and begin the interrogation of survivors. Kethver. Voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. We had no idea we were walking into the most elaborate trap in galactic history. Captain Minho hadn't been revealing their positions out of fear or surrender. He had been directing us exactly where the humans wanted us to go. The holographic displays in the interrogation chamber flickered as Kethver's massive frame trembled with the weight of his memories. His reptilian features contorted as he relived the horror of that first engagement. Attack Group 7 was assigned to Colony Vessel Taeyong, he began, his voice barely steady. 50 of our finest warships, including 3 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnoughts. The target appeared on our scanners as a simple civilian transport, maybe 800 meters long, drifting peacefully near a small asteroid mining operation. Councilmember Vexim's crystalline body reflected the chamber's blue lighting in nervous patterns. Standard procedure for dealing with civilian vessels. Exactly, Kethver nodded, his yellow eyes growing distant. Commander Gorthax led the assault group with absolute confidence. The tactical computers had analyzed the vessel completely. Basic hull plating, minimal power signatures, no apparent weapon systems. Our scanners detected approximately 2,000 life forms aboard, mostly. In the civilian frequency ranges, the massive warrior paused, his claws unconsciously digging grooves in the metal table. The approach was textbook perfect. Our ships moved into attack formation, powered up targeting systems, and prepared for the standard intimidation broadcast. Commander Gorthax opened communications, expecting to hear the usual pleading and offers of surrender. Vexil's tentacles writhed with anticipation, but that's not what happened. The moment our weapons achieved target lock, everything changed. Kethfer's voice dropped to a haunted whisper. The colony vessel's hull began to shift. Panels slid aside, revealing hidden compartments we hadn't detected. In seconds, the defenseless civilian transport transformed into something from a warrior's nightmare. He struggled to find words adequate to describe what he had witnessed. Massive energy cannons emerged from concealed housings. Missile pods unfolded like deadly flowers blooming in space. Point defense turrets sprouted from what had appeared to be simple communication arrays. The entire vessel reconfigured itself from a peaceful transport into a fortress bristling with weapons. Council member Zalmouth's energy form pulsed with disbelief. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such systems. That's what we thought. Kethfer's laugh was bitter and broken. But the humans had somehow shielded their weapons using the ship's own power grid. Every energy cannon was disguised as a cargo bay loader. Every missile launcher was hidden inside what looked like atmospheric processors. They had turned civilian equipment into military hardware without changing the energy signatures. The interrogation chamber fell silent, except for the humming of the ship's systems as the council members processed this information. Such technological deception was beyond anything in their databases. But the weapons weren't the worst part, Kethfer continued, his voice gaining a tremor of remembered terror. As our ships moved to engage, as 50 Zorthok warships prepared to unleash destruction upon what should have been helpless prey, something happened that will haunt me until my dying day. His massive head turned toward each council member in turn, ensuring they understood the gravity of what he was about to reveal. The humans aboard that vessel began to sing. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. In all their millennia of galactic warfare, none of the council members had ever heard of combatants singing during battle. At first, we thought it was some kind of death ritual. Kethfer's voice grew stronger as he fell into the rhythm of his testimony. Many species have final ceremonies before facing annihilation. But as the voices came through our communication systems, we realized this was something entirely different. He closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice carried an echo of the terror he had felt. They were singing war songs, ancient battle hymns from their primitive past, but adapted for space combat. The voices were strong, confident, filled with a joy that chilled us to our cores. These weren't beings facing death with resignation. They were beings celebrating the opportunity for battle. Kethfer's functioning arm moved in the air, sketching the impossible scene he had witnessed. Captain Soyoung's voice rose above the chorus, clear and strong, broadcasting on all frequencies. She sang words that translated roughly to today. "Is a good day to make others die." But the melody was beautiful, haunting, the kind of song you might hear at a celebration. The massive warrior slammed his functioning fist on the table, the impact echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. That single colony vessel, filled with what our intelligence had classified as farmers, teachers, and engineers, opened fire on 50 of our best warships. And they did it while singing like they were at a festival. His voice cracked with the strain of reliving the memory. The first salvo from their hidden weapons destroyed 4 of our escort frigates instantly. Clean kills, precise targeting, no wasted shots. But that wasn't what terrified us. It was the fact that as our ships exploded, as our comrades died in the vacuum of space, the humans kept singing. Council leader Vexil's Hess tentacles had gone completely still, a sign of absolute shock among her species. "How many ships did you lose in that first engagement?" 12, Kethfer whispered. In the first 3 minutes of combat, a single human vessel destroyed 12 Zorthok warships. Ships that had conquered entire star systems, reduced to burning wreckage by what we had thought were defenseless civilians. He paused, his breathing becoming labored again. But the most horrifying part wasn't the destruction. It was watching our tactical displays as the humans coordinated their attack with mathematical precision. Every shot was calculated, every movement planned. These weren't panicked civilians fighting for their lives. They were experienced warriors executing a carefully rehearsed battle plan. Vex_IMS crystalline surface showed patterns of confusion and fear, but our intelligence reports clearly stated they were civilians. That's what we thought too. Kethver's roar filled the chamber. But there are no human civilians. Every single person aboard that vessel fought like they had been born for war. The engineer who ran their power systems was also operating their main guns. The teacher who educated their children was coordinating their defense grid. The farmer who grew their food was piloting a makeshift fighter craft that had been hidden in a cargo bay. His voice grew quiet again, but somehow more menacing. As Captain Soyoung's ship finally began to take critical damage, as our remaining ships pressed their attack, she made one final transmission. Not a plea for mercy, not a surrender offer, not even a curse. She broadcast the exact coordinates of our main battle group. The implications hit the council members like a physical blow. She had somehow penetrated our military-grade encryption and accessed our tactical network, Kethver continued. While fighting for her life, while her ship was being torn apart by our weapons, Captain Soyoung managed to hack our communications and send our fleet positions to every human vessel in the system. His yellow eyes met each council member's gaze with haunted intensity. Her final words as her ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma where the coordinates are uploaded. Make 'em count. She died laughing, knowing that her sacrifice had given every other human settlement the exact information they needed to destroy us. The interrogation chamber's lighting dimmed slightly as Kethver's testimony entered its most disturbing phase. His massive reptilian form seemed to shrink as he recalled the systematic dismantling of everything the Zorthok Empire thought they knew about warfare. The real nightmare began exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes after the destruction of colony vessel Taeyang. Kethver's voice carried the precision of a military report, but underneath lay currents of barely controlled terror. Our tactical computers had analyzed the engagement and developed countermeasures. We thought we understood their capabilities now. We were prepared for hidden weapons, for deception, for their psychological warfare tactics. His yellow eyes focused on a point beyond the chamber walls, seeing battles that existed now only in memory and nightmare. Attack Group 12 engaged a cluster of mining vessels near the asteroid belt. Commander Vorthak led 18 heavy cruisers against what appeared to be simple industrial craft. Our sensors showed basic fusion torches, mining lasers, or processing equipment. Nothing that could threaten a military vessel. Council member Thexum's crystalline body flickered with anticipation patterns. But they had more hidden weapons? Kethver's response was flat, matter-of-fact, and somehow more terrifying because of it. They didn't hide anything this time. Commander Kyungsu's mining fleet approached our battle group with their industrial equipment fully visible, completely exposed. Our computers calculated a 19.7% probability of easy victory. The massive warrior's claws began their unconscious scraping against the table again, leaving fresh gouges in the reinforced metal. The lead mining vessel was a massive ore hauler, nearly 2 kilometers long, but built for cargo, not combat. Commander Kungsu opened communications as our ships moved into attack formation. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Kethver's attempt to mimic human speech patterns sent chills through the council members. He said, "Thank you for the lesson from Captain Soyoung's engagement. We've made some improvements based on your tactical preferences." Then he did something that should have been impossible. Vexel's tentacles writhed with nervous energy. What did he do? He turned an asteroid processing laser into a ship killer. Kethver's voice carried amazement even now. Not by hiding it or disguising its energy signature, but by modifying its focusing array in real time. The same laser that could carve through solid rock to extract valuable minerals suddenly became capable of slicing through our battlecruiser's armor like it was paper. The warrior paused, his breathing becoming labored as he relived the impossible engagement. But that was just the beginning. Commander Kung Su's miners began working together in ways we had never seen. Ore haulers, designed to carry thousands of tons of raw materials, suddenly accelerated to ramming speed and turned themselves into guided missiles. His voice grew stronger as he fell into the rhythm of describing the battle. Construction mechs, simple robotic units meant for building mining infrastructure, detached from their vessels and began boarding our ships. But these weren't random attacks. Each mech had been reprogrammed with detailed schematics of Zorthok vessel layouts. They knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. Council leader Vexthel shifted uncomfortably in her chair. How could civilian miners have access to our ship designs? That's what we couldn't understand. Kethfer's laugh was bitter and hollow. Later, we realized that Captain So-Young hadn't just hacked our communications. She had downloaded our entire tactical database, including detailed specifications of every ship class in our fleet. The humans had distributed this information to every vessel in their system within minutes of her death. The implications sent ripples of unease through the council members. Such rapid information sharing was beyond most military networks, let alone civilian communications. But the construction mechs were just the beginning, Kethfer continued, his voice gaining intensity. As our ships engaged the mining fleet, we began to notice something that defied everything we knew about warfare. Every successful tactic we used was immediately countered by the next human vessel we encountered. His yellow eyes met each council member's gaze with haunted intensity. When we destroyed one of their ore haulers with a concentrated plasma barrage, the next human ship we engaged had already modified its hull plating to disperse plasma energy. When we used our particle beam weapons to disable their engines, the following engagement showed that the humans had developed countermeasures to particle beam targeting. Dex_IM's crystalline surface showed patterns of disbelief. Impossible. It takes months, sometimes years, to develop effective countermeasures to new weapons. The humans did it in hours, Kethfer whispered, sometimes in minutes. They weren't just fighting individual battles. They were conducting the largest real-time military research experiment in galactic history. Every engagement was a learning opportunity. Every death was data to be analyzed and used to save future lives. The massive warrior's functioning arm moved in the air, sketching the impossible tactical situation he had witnessed. Captain Ji-Woon demonstrated this most clearly during the engagement with our flagship. His vessel was a damaged cargo freighter, barely holding together, facing off against the Zorthok dreadnought Vengeance of Worlds. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, forcing the council members to lean forward. Instead of engaging in direct combat, Captain Ji-Woon studied our attack patterns for exactly 43 minutes. He let his ship take damage, let his crew die. While his computers analyzed every aspect of our weapons, our targeting systems, our tactical preferences, Kethfer's voice cracked with emotion. Then he did something that still gives me nightmares. Captain Ji-Woon used our own targeting systems against us. It somehow tapped into our fire control network and was feeding false targeting data to our weapons. When we thought we were firing at his ship, we were actually firing at coordinates he had selected. The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of the ship's systems, as the council members tried to process this information. The explosion took out half our command structure, Kethfer continued, his voice hollow with remembered horror. The debris field expanded as our flagship broke apart and our admirals died in the vacuum of space. Captain Ji-Woon's voice came through the static with words that haunt me still. He closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice carried an echo of the human captain's calm confidence. Thanks for the lesson in gravitational warfare. We'll remember that. Vextel's tentacles had gone completely motionless. How could they learned so quickly? Because they weren't just fighting to win, Kethfer replied, his voice gaining strength as he approached the heart of his testimony. They were fighting to teach themselves how to kill us better. Every engagement was a classroom. Every death was a textbook on how to fight more effectively. His massive head turned toward each council member. Captain Haijin proved this during the engagement with our Ninth Fleet. She commanded nothing but modified cargo pods, civilian transport containers that had been hastily armed with basic weapons. No military training, no combat experience, facing 3 of our heavy cruisers in open space. Kethver's voice cracked as he continued, but Captain Hyjin had done something unprecedented. She had studied every second of every previous battle. She knew our weapons, maximum range, our reload times, our tactical doctrines, our commanders' psychological profiles. She had turned warfare into a science. The warrior slammed his functioning fist on the table again. She didn't just defeat those cruisers, she captured them. With cargo pods, she used their own momentum against them, created gravitational slingshots using nearby asteroids, somehow managed to disable 3 military vessels without destroying them. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. The last transmission from Captain Hyjin, as she took control of our ships, was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. She said 3 more additions to our fleet. We're starting to understand your technology now. Thank you for the donations. The holographic displays in the interrogation chamber cast eerie shadows as Kethver approached the most devastating part of his testimony. His massive reptilian frame seemed to collapse inward as he recalled the final moments of what had once been the galaxy's most feared military force. 18 hours after the battle began, our mighty armada was nothing but scattered wreckage. And fleeing survivors, Kethver's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. Yet every word carried the weight of absolute defeat. 300 ships that had conquered 17 star systems, reduced to 7 burning hulks limping through space like wounded animals. His yellow eyes, once fierce with predatory confidence, now held only the hollow stare of a broken warrior. I was aboard the command cruiser Eternal Dominion when Fleet Admiral Zorgtal gave the retreat order. But it wasn't really a retreat. You can't retreat from something that's hunting you with perfect knowledge of your every weakness. Council member Zalmoth's energy form pulsed with nervous light patterns. Surely your remaining ships could have escaped using hyperspace jumps. Kethver's bitter laugh echoed through the chamber like the sound of breaking glass. The humans had learned to predict our escape routes. Every time we tried to charge our hyperspace engines, they knew exactly where we would emerge. Captain Dayhine's modified cargo haulers were waiting for us at every jump point. Armed with weapons they had built from the wreckage of our own ships, the massive warrior's claws left fresh gouges in the reinforced table as his memories intensified. We tried everything. Random jump calculations, emergency protocols, even desperate short-range hops that risked tearing our ships apart. Nothing worked. The humans had somehow mapped our entire tactical database and could predict our movements better than we could ourselves. He paused, his breathing becoming labored as he relived those final desperate hours. That's when we realized the terrible truth. We weren't escaping. We were being herded. Like livestock being guided toward slaughter, the humans were controlling exactly where our surviving ships could go. Vextal's tentacles writhed with barely controlled fear, herded toward what? Edge of their system, Kethver replied. 7 battered Zorthok vessels, engines failing, life support systems damaged. Weapons depleted, crawling through space at a fraction of normal speed. We thought we were finally reaching safety when we detected the boundary of human space. His voice grew stronger as he fell into the rhythm of his final testimony. That's when the transmission came through. Crystal clear, no static, perfect translation matrix, human voice speaking with the calm authority of absolute victory. Kethver closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice carried an echo of that moment that would haunt him forever. This is Admiral Sung-Ho of the Human Defense Fleet. You came here to demonstrate your power through violence. We understand this completely. It appears to be a common language throughout the galaxy. The council members leaned forward despite themselves, drawn into the climactic moment of this impossible tale. But Admiral Sung-Ho's next words revealed the true scope of what we had stumbled into. Kethver continued. He said, "You should know that this engagement was humanity's first real combat test. We've been preparing for galactic contact for decades, but we've never had the opportunity to field test our theories against actual alien technology. Thank you for providing us with such comprehensive training data." The implications hit the council like a physical blow. The humans had been preparing for galactic warfare before they had even made contact with other species. Kethfer's entire massive frame shuddered as he continued. Admiral Sung-ho's voice remained perfectly calm, as he delivered the most terrifying military briefing I have ever heard. Over the past 18 hours, we have completely analyzed your fleet compositions, your tactical doctrines, your weapons technology, and your species' psychological warfare patterns. This information has been distributed to every human vessel in our space and transmitted to our home world for further analysis. His voice cracked with the strain of reliving the moment. But then the Admiral said something that made my blood freeze in my veins. We have also reverse-engineered 17 different weapon systems from your destroyed vessels, proved upon 12 of your tactical formations, and identified 43 critical weaknesses in standard Zorthok military doctrine. We've learned quite a lot about galactic warfare today. The chamber fell silent, except for the humming of the ship's systems and Kethfer's labored breathing. The council members sat in stunned silence, processing the implications of what they were hearing. When Admiral Sung-ho delivered the message I was sent here to repeat, Kethfer whispered, his voice carrying the weight of absolute finality. He said, "Tell the Galactic Council that humanity formally requests diplomatic relations. Tell them we initially attempted peaceful contact through standard communication protocols. But we understand that strength appears to be the only currency." Respected in galactic politics, Kethfer looked directly at each council member, his haunted eyes ensuring they understood every word. Admiral Sung-ho continued, "Tell them we are prepared to join the galactic community as equals, contributing our knowledge and resources for the benefit of all species. We believe in cooperation, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence." The massive warrior paused, his breathing becoming more labored. But then came the part that still gives me nightmares. The Admiral's voice never changed, never lost its calm reasonableness, as he delivered what could only be described as the most polite threat in galactic history. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Admiral Sung-ho said, "However, if the galactic community prefers to communicate through demonstrations of military superiority, we are prepared to speak that language with complete fluency. We are remarkably quick learners, and we have exceptionally good memories." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Each council member understood the implications of that message with crystal clarity. As our ships limped away from human space, Admiral Sung-ho's final transmission followed us. Kethfer continued. He said, "Safe travels, survivors of the Zorthok fleet. We hope this will be the beginning of a long and mutually beneficial relationship between our species. Please remember that we offered friendship first." Kethfer slumped back in his reinforced chair, his massive frame seeming to deflate as he reached the end of his testimony. The humans aren't just joining the galactic stage as another species, seeking their place among the stars. They're joining as the new apex predators of the galaxy. And the most terrifying part of all? They're being completely reasonable about it. His yellow eyes met each council member's gaze one final time. We went to their system thinking we would conquer primitives and steal their secrets. Instead, we became their teachers, showing them everything they needed to know about galactic warfare. We thought we were the hunters, but from the moment we entered their space, we were nothing but prey. The chamber remained silent for long moments, the weight of Kethfer's testimony settling over the council like a heavy shroud. Finally, the massive Zorthok warrior spoke one last time, his voice carrying the finality of absolute truth. "We thought we were conquering primitives. Instead, we taught them how to hunt us. And now they're coming to join the galactic community, armed with everything we taught them, and the terrifying knowledge that they learned it all in a single day." The recording device's red light blinked steadily as Kethfer's testimony came to an end, preserving for all time the account of humanity's entrance onto the galactic stage. Not as supplicants or victims, but as the species that had taken the galaxy's most feared military force and turned their invasion into a comprehensive education in the art of war. The humans were coming, and they had learned their lessons well. The end.